Welcome to the Life After Sugar podcast. The podcast that's not just about sugar, but about your relationship with it and also with food and especially with yourself. So if you want to discover your life after sugar and hear inspiring stories from all kinds of people who also cut out sugar in their way, at their pace, for their own reasons, this is the podcast for you. Because when you take away the sugar, you can finally discover the real sweetness in your life. I'm your host, Netta Gorman. And today I have a special Halloween episode for you called What Scares You About Sugar? In fact, what scares you about eating sugar at Halloween and at any other time of the year? And what scares you about not eating sugar? We'll get to those two questions in just a moment. But first, I just wanted to tell you that if you're looking for some free resources about how to get rid of cravings, then I have plenty for you. Come check out the Life After Sugar Facebook page and subscribe to the Life After Sugar YouTube channel, as well as my Instagram account at My Life After Sugar, which is where you'll get all kinds of inspiration so that you can see that it's perfectly possible to live a happy and active life, even if you don't eat sugar. You can also check out my TikTok account at Netta_Life After Sugar. And you can also download my 5 tips to start getting rid of cravings. Look in the description in the show notes along with this episode. All right, so what scares you about eating sugar? In other words, how do you imagine your life 1 year, 2 years, 5, 10, or even 20 years in the future if you continue to eat the amount of sugar that you're eating now? Now, I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm saying this to encourage you to think about how your actions today can influence your future. And again, with no guilt trip behind this question, but rather the opposite. The opportunity for you to take charge of your actions and your decisions and use your personal power to change the course of your life by reducing or cutting sugar. In my personal experience, I had to be at a pretty bad place and suffering physically and psychologically to decide to make, any kind of change. And in this case, cutting sugar. And human nature is such that we don't usually make any type of change unless we're forced to. That was certainly the case for me. I had zero intention of changing what I was eating, much less so cutting sugar and all my favorite comfort foods. There was no way I was going to give up chocolate. No way. Until, my suffering became more acute than my resistance to change. And that may be where you are now. And look, I totally get it. Any type of change is scary. How do you know you're not going to fail at it? Well, the truth is, you don't know. You can't know. All you can do is give it a try. In the case of reducing or cutting sugar, it certainly can't do any harm, can it? So maybe you're at a stage in your life now where you want to eat healthy, but you get derailed by cravings whenever you're tired or stressed or emotional or bored, or when you're on vacation or at a social event and you can't say no, or when you have company, or you're invited over to someone's house and you just can't imagine turning down their yummy food. It's scary to think that you might be perceived as like the odd one out or on yet another diet or difficult to cook for or, you get the point. We don't want to be different. Well, unless you have the type of personality like I do and you kind of enjoy it. But most people would rather blend in and not make a big deal of how they eat. Because eating is a social activity. And if you change what you eat, then other people might notice that and pass comment or judge you. And who wants to feel judged, right? And maybe you are scared of failing. And even if I'm here to tell you that the concept of failure very probably comes from the diet culture, it doesn't make that fear any less present for you. And that fear of failure, understandable as it is, may cause you to put off a change like reducing or cutting sugar, because that change in itself has the potential for an unsuccessful outcome. And if you're dealing with high stress or traumatic experiences or difficult situations like emotional abuse or a difficult past where you've always reached for sugar as a source of comfort, then I can totally understand that it's scary to think about having to deal with these uncomfortable feelings without sugar. What if what's scary about continuing to eat the amount of sugar that you eat now is not being able to lose those extra pounds? Because let's face it, as we get older, it's not as easy to lose that excess weight like it was when we were younger. And maybe if you've tried all the diets, like most of us have, this can be a big fear. The fear of falling off the wagon and regaining all your weight and finding yourself back on that vicious cycle. Or if you've discovered intermittent fasting and you love it, maybe you're struggling to be consistent and your fear is that your cravings will get in the way of your intermittent fasting lifestyle that you love. And if what scares you about continuing to eat sugar are all those metabolic dysregulations that are associated with high levels of sugar consumption, like insulin resistance, a fatty liver, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, obesity, dental caries, higher risk of some cancers, or any other type of metabolic disorders. You may have or you may have had in the past aging parents, and you don't want to end up sick like them. It's scary. Maybe you're a parent or a grandparent, and it's scary to think that your eating habits, especially with sugar, are influencing your children or your grandchildren. You'd like to be a better role model for them. I just want to take a quick break to say that if this is your first time here, then welcome and thank you for listening to this podcast. In fact, here are a couple of 5-star reviews for the Life After Sugar podcast. The first one is from Marilyn, and she says, I like that Netta lets her guests talk and doesn't make the discussion about herself only. I can relate to new people's experience. Thanks. Thank you, Marilyn. And this 5-star review is entitled, I'm Winning. It's from Tracy, who says, I titled this review Winning because that is how I feel about my sugar-free journey. I've been listening to the Life After Sugar podcast since the summer of 2022, and I've been inspired by all of the stories. I've been trying to slowly stop eating sugar since about October of 2022. In fact, I did not eat one piece of candy on Halloween 2022 for the first time ever. I knew then that I was gaining control of my sugar addiction. Currently, I've not had any sugar, including fruit for now, for 6 weeks, and I'm no longer having any cravings. Thank you for this platform. You're changing lives. Thank you, Tracy. You're an inspiration. And whether you're new to the podcast or you're a regular and you haven't yet rated or reviewed this podcast, could I ask you to scroll down and tap on the stars to rate this podcast and also to write a short review to let me know how this podcast is helping you in your life after sugar. I love reading your reviews, and when you rate and review this podcast, not only does it encourage me to continue making new episodes, but it also helps to share this podcast and have more people see it so that we can help more people feel better and lose weight with less sugar. So again, thank you for rating and reviewing this podcast and for spreading the word about sugar. Alright, so this episode is all about what scares you about sugar, about continuing to eat sugar or about not eating sugar. You may already know which foods are healthy, or you may have read a ton of books and listened to a bunch of podcasts, including all 146 episodes of this podcast. But what scares you is knowing the information, but not using it, not applying it to your life. You may see what you don't want and how you don't want to act with sugar, but you're struggling to implement that and to make a real change in your life. You may be very good at affirmations and goals, but you're struggling to actually implement different choices when it comes down to your daily behavior. It's scary to think of having to change your daily habits, big ones and small ones. I mean, what if you want a dessert after dinner? Or what if you've had a really rough day at work and you're exhausted and all you want to do is just flop on the couch and eat some candy or popcorn or chips, but you're not allowed, in air quotes? Won't that make you feel deprived? Like you're denying yourself? You know, just like you were on a diet? And what if you've been doing really, really well and then it's your birthday, or there's a work function, or you go off on a cruise, or your mother-in-law invites you over, or it's a Friday night, or a Tuesday afternoon, or, well, you get the point, right? You can make any occasion a reason to eat sugar or not to eat sugar. But the scary thing can be realizing that it's under your control. Many of us feel out of control around food, especially sugar. And it can actually feel scary to reframe this and realize that you do have control over your own choices, and that not eating sugar, especially if sugar is making you suffer, is as much under your control as giving in to your cravings or to social pressure. It may not feel that way right now, but with a little guidance from someone with, I don't know, let's say 8 years experience of living happily sugar-free, I can tell you that it is possible. Or what if you really, really want to do this, but you're scared that you don't have what it takes, that you're not strong enough, you don't have the willpower or the discipline. This comes back to the fear of failure that I was talking about earlier in this episode. It's a real and valid fear. And actually using what you don't want to scare you into action can work for some people, and using images or powerful words to describe what you do want can motivate others to translate desire into action. So imagining your life if you continue to consume sugar, as well as imagining your life if you stop eating sugar, can both be scary. And maybe this is scary for you to hear, but it's up to you to choose which one you want. And from personal experience, I can tell you that making these types of scary changes isn't easy to do on your own. And that's where I come in, because I've created 2 ways that you can get my guidance and support and accountability to start making these scary changes and have them feel, well, less scary. I can give you step-by-step guidance so that you know how to make these changes, and as a bonus, they won't feel as scary anymore because you'll feel supported and understood and encouraged by myself, because I've been there, and by a lovely group of other like-minded people who are on the same path as you. How do you get this guidance and support and accountability? Well, you have two options. You can sign up for my 90-day program, Freedom from Cravings Formula, and get 12 weeks of personalized guidance from me and weekly accountability calls, and follow my 5-step formula to get rid of cravings, slim down, and finally feel in control around food. Go to aftersugarclub.com and schedule a clarity call with me so that we can talk about your specific needs and whether the Freedom from Cravings Formula 90-day program is a good fit for you. Go to aftersugarclub.com, or you can sign up for the private monthly membership, the After Sugar Club. The After Sugar Club is a lower price monthly subscription, and when you join, you have access to a library of self-study resources that I've created for you with my experience of 8 years of living happily sugar-free and craving-free. You can join the After Sugar Club at any time so that you can reduce or cut sugar without it feeling so scary. As an After Sugar Club member, you'll be part of our friendly community of encouraging members who are on the same path to cutting sugar and who lift each other up. We have group check-in calls twice a month so that you can get the support and the accountability you need. And the link to join is in the show notes. Or go to aftersugarclub.com and look in the top menu for the After Sugar Club. That's it for this week. Keep in touch and see you soon for another episode.